You are listening to the Wandering Chronicles podcast. I'm Ashley.
I'm Jamie.
Hi, Jamie. How are you?
I am okay. How are you?
I am dead to the world.
Yeah, you've been busy lately.
I am a ghost.
Bitch, I'm a ghost.
Bitch, I'm a ghost. I feel like no part of me is real anymore. I just, am so tired. I don't think I exist.
I have no good reason to feel exactly the same way. You've actually been busy. I've just been wildly depressed. For backstory, Ashley had an art show yesterday.
Yeah, 2 days in a row.
People don't realize, unless they do those kinds of shows, how much fucking work they are.
It's a ton of work. I was at the studio every day this week. I was there 8 days in a row because I was working on making stuff for the show. And I'm really proud of everything I put together. They were all really cool. No one bought any of the dangly earrings, which is fine. It was nice to display
That's wild to me, because those were the best things you had. I liked a lot of the things you had, but the dangly earrings were the best things that you had, in my opinion.
I sold yet another embroidery. I sold an old painting from 6 years ago.
That's nice, at least.
Goodbye, Joan. Okay.
Well, it's nice that you're selling stuff that is probably a little harder to sell, because I think if you get to the right show, the earrings are gonna sell like hotcakes.
Yeah. So somebody bought the I'll see you in hell embroidery for their nanny.
That's hysterical.
She's like, this girl's an extension of her family, and this is so her sense of humor, so I'm gonna buy this for her. And I'm like, it's amazing. It's just amazing.
That's funny.
I loved it. So that one's gone, finally. That one's one I thought would never go.
Yeah. What?
I'm just watching Izzy do something really weird.
All of
Sorry,
a sudden.
I just stopped and looked over, and her butt's in the air, and she's had her head stuck underneath something. And I'm like, what is she doing? She's just looking at something. She wasn't stuck. I was very, very much prepared to go over there and just pull that cat out like a cork. See, there's there were little whiskers coming out of the top corner of your screen.
Oh, Chibi's tail was...
Yeah, I saw a little bit of fluff come out of the corner of your screen, and I was like, kitty.
Yeah,
Hi, Cheeps.
they're all over.
Hi, Cheeps.
I spent the day cleaning my apartment. It's nice and clean. Our washing machine is broken.
Of course it is.
Fucking everything has been broken at this apartment. I got my air conditioner back this week. They did have to replace the entire unit, and they had to refit the HVAC.
Yeah.
The, what's the word? The tubing things.
The ventilation.
Thank you. They had to because they were down there working on it, and no one told me they were going to be here working, because they didn't have to come into my unit, so that's fine, but they were working on it directly below my apartment, and they were welding stuff, so I'm like, is fire smell coming from you, or should I be worried? Because I'm smelling fire.
Hi,
They're
Nigel.
oh, it's us. So I'm going to finish a book tonight that's going to make me cry a lot, I have a feeling.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Dan got me the best book for my birthday. He got me a book on torture of Christian martyrs.
I'm very... can you send me the name of that book? That sounds up my alley.
I'm going to send you a photo of it I took earlier. It's amazing. And I'm using one of the severed doll arms in my birthday cake as... Okay, I guess I need to send you 2 photos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Ashley's birthday was also yesterday.
Yep.
Art show and birthday on the same weekend.
It was hell. Yeah, so I'm using one... I had 2 requests from Dan, and he followed instructions very, very well. The... First part it was that I wanted a cake that he did not bake.
That's a good request.
Yes, because Dan is a good cook. He can cook, because cooking can be improvised and you can explore and, do whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
Baking is not the kind of cooking that you can improvise with. You have to follow instructions.
Baking is a science, cooking is an art.
Yes. As I said to somebody else, cooking is jazz music. You can put whatever notes you want in there, you can have fun with it, but baking is classical. If you don't follow the notes, you fuck it up.
Yeah.
So.
Very few people can treat baking like an art.
Yeah.
And succeed.
Yeah,
Some
so
people can.
He has poisoned 2 people with his baking, me being one of them.
Define poison.
I was throwing up for 12 hours after eating his baking.
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting.
I have since refused to eat any baked goods he makes. If he makes it,
Fair.
I will not eat it. So I made the request, do not bake my cake. He followed that. He basically Frankensteined 3 different cakes together, but none of them were baked by him. There's a strawberry shortcake, a regular cake, and a giant cookie cake. And I said that I wanted body parts in my cake. So he broke apart doll parts and just put them in the cake. So I sent you a photo. You can look at the photo. This cake is insane. And it's currently in my fridge, and there's no way I'm going to eat all of it or even most of it because it's just way too much. And then the other one is the book, in which case I am also using one of the doll arms as a bookmark.
I don't have words for this. It looks like he got this out of a dumpster.
Yeah, it does.
Does it have caramel corn on top of it?
It has chocolate popcorn on top of it, yeah. And Oreo
I think that's
pieces.
what was throwing me off.
And Oreo pieces. It had pieces of Oreos and chocolate-covered popcorn on it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think that's what was throwing me off here.
He quite literally Frankensteined a cake together, just threw something he had on top of it.
Can I borrow this book when you're done with it?
Yeah.
It looks it looks legitimately interesting.
It is really interesting. It was published in 1959, so the language is a little bit, like, fancier than what I'm used to, and reading it is really crazy.
But that makes me think even more so that it's probably, like, well-researched. Because I was picturing something that was from, like, the 1800s.
No, this is...
When...
the images... I left the book at the studio, so I have to go back to the studio tomorrow and get it, but I'm not going today, because fuck that.
No, take the week off.
Yeah, I'm gonna go because we have to reorganize the studio, because it's all just, like, shoved into the 2 rooms that we got now, and we gotta reorganize it, and I can't deal with it. But today is a day off. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep, it's good for you.
Yeah.
Although you're not technically taking a day off because we're recording a podcast.
I don't count this as work compared to what I've been doing all weekend. This is a relaxing experience. I get to sit here and talk to you. This is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's good.
This is my ideal way to spend time, is to sit here and talk to you.
I spent the morning hate watching Ben Shapiro.
Why?
So, not on purpose. I just, I think I mentioned to you that I've gotten into this streamer called Hassan Piker.
Okay.
And he streams a lot of Ben Shapiro and, reacts to it. And it got me interested.
Oh, because he used to be on the Young Turks, right?
Yes, he did. And now he has his own thing that he does on Twitch. But then someone that he employs cuts his Twitch stream up and actually puts YouTube videos out with it, which is what I'm interested in, because I can't sit through 8 hours of streaming to get to the part that I'm going to be interested in.
No, absolutely not.
No, I'm 40. Got fucking shit to do. But just watching Ben Shapiro talk about the Roe v. Wade, honestly, listening to anyone talk about the Roe v. Wade thing and act like the leak is the problem that people should be angry about is bonkers to me. It's crazy making.
It's backwards.
Yeah.
We should be upset about the decision, not the leak.
Well, somehow he said we need to know who did the leak for transparency. And I'm like, okay, but the leak is the transparency.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting because the way Ben Shapiro talks about Roe v. Wade, it sounds like he only believes in sex for procreation. Mm-hmm. So they were making fun of him as an incel.
Yeah.
Which is why I went to watch some of his other videos, because I'm curious now if he's an incel or not. I know he's married and he has children, but he talks about it like his wife just decided that this was the time that she was going to get pregnant, so she hit the pregnant button.
Yeah.
That's just...
We all know that if you hit the pregnant button, the floodgates open and everything's allowed in.
Yeah, I think we should just make an overall blanket rule that if a man can explain your own anatomy to you, he is not allowed to touch said anatomy.
Yes.
If they don't understand how your body works, they should not be allowed to touch your body.
Yeah. Do some research, learn female body, then you can talk about it. And maybe touch it if you're lucky.
Yeah, that's just kind of where I was at. But probably not.
Because
I think we're all kind of done with men at this point.
I'm not really sure what they're used for at this point. We're very close to being able to procreate without them, so.
Did you read that study that they were learning how to make sperm out of bones?
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, so close. The world without men.
Have you ever seen the Nicolas Cage version of The Wicker Man?
No, I've never seen that movie.
Well, the reason I bring it up is that version, not the original version, but that version is based on a matriarchal society. And the men their mouths are sewn shut.
Yes!
And they're too afraid to talk to women. And that's what I always think about when people talk about alternatives to patriarchal societies.
I've often said that men should be seen and not heard.
I'd be fine with something more egalitarian, but it is funny to think about.
Yeah. All right.
And on that note...
We are in Salisbury, Maryland today. How did you get here?
Hang glide.
Interesting. How'd that work for you?
I'm afraid of heights, so I shit my pants a lot.
So you landed with a pants full of crap.
It was a soft landing.
Well, at least you had something to cushion you.
Yeah, well padded.
I dematerialized and rematerialized where I wanted to be.
Okay. So we're talking ectoplasm?
Yeah. Which, cool. As today was a picker's choice... I picked a ghost story.
Oh.
Something we haven't covered here.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited.
I have all this power. What am I going to do with it? The world is my oyster. I can choose anything I want.
Yeah.
Ghosts.
What were the other alternatives? Do you remember anything else about Salisbury?
I honestly didn't look at anything other than ghosts. There were some murders. There were some, like, interesting kind of, like, politicalized murders that I kind of quickly dashed through. But I burnt out on the tragedy. So I went with a mystery.
Can't blame you. It's nice to have something different plus a ghost story. Who can resist?
It's not really a mystery. It's just flat out a ghost story.
Yeah.
But
I think ghost stories count as mystery because, like, there's a lot of people who don't believe in ghosts.
Do you believe in ghosts?
I don't know. I've never had an experience. I feel like I want to believe, and I want to be open to something like that if it were to happen, but it's never happened to me, so it's hard for me to believe.
I do believe, because I know I've told you about the old lady in my house growing up.
Yeah.
I definitely remember that. But, so I had a weird experience in my apartment the other day. It was actually, like, early last week when I first...
Where you live right now?
Yes. And I've had experiences like this before, and I usually am just like, whatever's going on, just stop it, and it will just stop. But I was in bed, both my cats were sleeping on the couch, and I was on the edge of falling asleep when all of a sudden I heard a crash. And I came into my kitchen, and I have, like, a stack of, like, saran wrap and tin foil and parchment paper, and they're all, like, stacked up in a row on this, like, shelf. And they all fell on the floor. And I looked over, and both my cats looked startled, but they were still both on the couch. There's no way they could have, like, gotten back into that position on the couch. They were both sleeping there. So I don't know what happened, but they both fell, and they don't fall on their own. So.
And they weren't, like, precariously stacked?
No, because they stay up there all the time. Like, I knock into them all the time and knock them over, but I was in bed, and they were still stable where they were. So there was no reason for them to fall.
Interesting.
Also, something flew against the wall the other day, and I was looking at it. I was like, what the hell was that? Couldn't figure it out.
See, that would be the story I would lead with.
Yeah, well, it just... weird shit keeps happening in my apartment. That or I'm not home to see it happen.
Interesting.
Whatever.
Well, you've lived there a long time, too, so have you always had...
Yeah, every once in a while it happens. I once had one of my saran wrap boxes fly off my counter and hit the wall across from it.
People really don't like saran wrap.
Apparently not. That or maybe it's the light enough thing to knock over, because it's not a very heavy container. I don't know. But yeah, I have some weird experiences. I do believe in ghosts. I'm not gonna, like, shove it down anyone's throat, but, you know, I do believe in ghosts.
Yeah, I'm not an active skeptic or anything. I just feel like it's hard for me to go all in on belief without having had any
experience,
personal experiences. I don't tell people that they're lying when they talk to me. But, you know, when I watch, like, I'm not super into ghost shows, like paranormal research type shows, but there was one that I was really into called A Paranormal State.
Okay.
That was the one that was set at Penn State because they have a parapsychology program.
Yeah.
And I actually looked into it because I thought, well, even if I don't fully 100% believe in ghosts, I do believe that people's experiences come from somewhere, and those people still have a right to treatment of some sort, whatever is causing it. You know what I mean? It doesn't really even matter what the cause of it is, because I'm not going to cure them.
No.
Like, that's not the goal ever, so it doesn't really matter what causes it if that's not the goal.
Yeah.
At least that's how I feel about it. And they were really good about, okay, so you've been experiencing XYZ. These are things that could also cause XYZ. Let's rule all of these other things out.
And if they're still happening and those have been ruled out, then okay.
Then we're more willing to believe it. And I liked that because, you know, half the time they would end the episode and say, well, they had an electrical problem. And that would also explain what happened here.
Yeah.
Or, you know, we took this guy to a psychiatrist and he had symptoms of schizophrenia. So that would explain. So, yeah. I really liked that show a lot.
Yeah, I don't really watch ghost shows. I don't really like paranormal investigative shows.
That was a good one. If you ever want to check it out. Plus, the lead guy's, like, really cute.
Okay.
Which is the real reason.
I mean, I do like those, like, dramatic, like, reenactive shows about this house is haunted. I think they're really funny because they're usually really cheesy and stupid, but I enjoyed that because of the cheese factor.
Yeah. This show didn't do that. It was cool. Some of them were really cheesy because the psychics that they would bring in, there were a couple that I'm like, I hate the episodes where this chick's in it because she is not believable, you know what I mean?
She seems like she's acting or whatever for the cameras.
Yeah, whereas there's some that you're like, okay, well, what was that? What was that?
A ghost!
One of them made a sound and they're all looking at each other like
which one of you did it?
Was me, don't rat me out.
Everyone just looks at Nigel.
He's under the table. That's who I thought. But,
that's funny.
yeah, I don't know. Anyway, that's a good show. I really liked it. Also, because it's set in Pennsylvania, a lot of the places they would go would be, like, Pennsylvania, kind of the Iron Valley over there, which had a lot of really interesting history, especially, like, in Appalachia.
Yeah.
So, I liked it for that reason, too. So, yeah, that's where I stand on ghost stuff. I don't know. That was a tangent that was unexpected. I'm sorry.
I did write that question into my notes expecting a little bit of a conversation.
Okay. I'm interested in ghosts, and I want to believe in ghosts, and that's where I'm at.
Okay. Well,
I'm also a fucking pansy, so it's not like I'm gonna go out of my way to put myself in a place where I could experience ghosts. I did go on one ghost tour one time, and it was probably the most mild ghost tour you could go on, and I was scared shitless.
oh man.
So I couldn't go on, like, a legitimate, like, Missouri has the state penitentiary, you can get locked in overnight. There's no...
I would do that in a heartbeat.
No, I would have a panic attack and cry all night. That's not my scene
No, that would not
at
be good.
all.
I would definitely go on a tour of it at least during the day. That'd be fun.
I could see maybe doing that if I were with the right people.
Yeah.
I think Chibi is a ghost, otherwise I'd ask her.
Chibi is a ghost.
She's a void.
She's a heat-seeking void.
Yeah, she's a succubus.
She is a cute little succubus.
She's gonna bite me. Yep. She's...
So predictable, Chibi.
Alright, I want to hear about this ghost.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about Salisbury, Maryland first.
Okay.
And then I'm going to give you a little brief history of the house.
Okay.
And then we'll get into the good stuff.
Yay!
So, as we mentioned earlier, we are in Salisbury, Maryland. I will mention that Salisbury, Maryland was indeed named after Salisbury, England. So,
Not the steak.
not the steak, but the place. So, that was not completely obvious to people. Yes, it was named after Salisbury, England.
I didn't know there was a Salisbury, England, so...
I did.
I guess I do now.
So, the town started off as a small colonial outpost. Can't talk.
Outpost.
Oh, this is gonna be a long episode of me just not being able to talk.
You've outpushed yourself this time. Pussy galore.
I can't do this. Okay, the town started off as a small colonial outpost set up by Lord Baltimore because it resides on the Wicomoco River. It is currently the largest city in the Eastern Shore region of Maryland. And this last fact I just really enjoyed. The city celebrates local arts and culture through various events falling on the third Friday of each month. These events generally will feature local artists, musicians, and nonprofit organizations. I think that's really cool.
Oh, all year round?
Yeah, seems like it.
Very cool. Traverse City had something like that when I lived there, but it was only in the summertime.
Yeah, I always love when cities do that.
Yeah, it was like First Fridays.
Yeah, it's so nice when they can celebrate local arts and culture and especially including the nonprofit organizations. That's really nice.
Yeah, gets people something to do, reason to come together as a community.
Oh yeah.
Get to know their neighbors and stuff.
So, those are my little fun facts about Salisbury, the town, not the steak, or England, the city.
Or the Peter Gabriel song.
Yes. None of those things except for it is about Maryland. So, I will be telling you about Poplar Hill Mansion, which is located at 117 Elizabeth Street. And I can tell you that because it is actually a historical landmark now and is also a museum open to the public. So, I'm going to give maybe a brief history on the property. And I say maybe because I wrote this before I actually wrote the history and I didn't know how brief I was actually going to be. So, in 1775, Major Levin Handy purchased 357 acres of Pemberton's goodwill as, and I quote, of Somerset County, but formerly of Rhode Island, just on the edge of what would be the town of Salisbury, though it is currently part of the city. Construction of this Federalist-style mansion began shortly after, with the intent to construct an ornate working plantation. So, here's a little background on what a Federalist-style house is, or sometimes it's called an Adams-style after the architect that inspired the style, which is Robert Adams. It is very similar to a typical colonial house in that it is a simple square or rectangle shape split into 4 rooms. They are generally 2 rooms deep. The main difference is that a Federalist-style building is more ornate and tends to be 2 to 3 stories tall. Some ornate details were inspired by the Georgian style, with the biggest difference is that the exterior of a Federalist building may have a simpler porch, and the exterior of Georgian-style buildings will have Grecian column and ornate moldings. So,
okay,
they're basically fancy colonial houses with more stories. Yeah. Unfortunately, due to illness and financial problems, Major Handy had to halt construction on Poplar Hill Mansion in 1802 and was forced to sell it in 1805 to pay his debts. So, goodbye, Major Handy, and hello to Dr. John D. Houston.
Okay.
So in that year, Dr. John Houston purchased the land and partially constructed mansion that he eventually did end up finishing. Dr. Houston was Salisbury's first surgeon, and he did use the house to conduct his surgeries.
No.
And at that time,
No.
technically Poplar Hill would have been the first hospital in the town.
That freaks me out. Have you ever seen American Horror Story?
Yeah. Medicine in that time was not safe. So...
And anyone could call themselves a doctor.
Yeah. In a lot of articles I read that talked about him using the house for his surgeries, all made the point to say a lot of his patients didn't come back out alive. So, that's one aspect that could contribute to the feelings that people have in the mansion. There was even one room in the house, the only room with keyhole covers, which was likely the room that Dr. Houston used to perform his surgeries. Likely the keyhole covers were to block the visual of anything going on in that room because he had 4 small daughters.
So that they couldn't spy on
yes.
that amputation or whatever.
They couldn't look in and see their father ripping somebody apart, basically.
But he's a doctor.
He's a doctor, honey. He's a doctor.
Oh gosh. You just channeled Jewish grandma.
Yes. But he's a doctor, honey. So, you can imagine how well that went. In 1828, Dr. Houston passed away, leaving the estate, lands, $110, and 18 slaves to his wife. So, his wife was named Sarah. So, there's Sarah number 1. After Sarah owned the house, it was sold several times over and renovated and updated for more modern luxuries in 1945 by Fred A. Atkins. And in 1970, the city of Salisbury purchased it under a trust, and in 1974, it was designated a historic landmark. So, it is currently the oldest documented house in Salisbury. It miraculously survived fires that devastated Salisbury not once, but twice.
Interesting.
First in 1880, and then again in 1886.
Those were not very far apart.
No, that city caught on fire twice within a decade. Not good.
That happened to Chicago, too.
Yeah.
Didn't it? They were that close together, weren't they?
I don't remember when the Chicago fire happened.
There were 2, weren't there? There was one big one.
There was a smaller one, yeah.
Yeah, and I think they weren't that far apart.
No, probably not.
If memory serves.
That's what happens when you build a city out of wood. It also survived the War of 1812, and the theory as to how the house survived the war is that Dr. Houston provided care for the wounded in the house, and that is likely why the house was spared. So, it is...
because they didn't, it wasn't bombed for that reason.
Yeah.
Or not bombed,
Yeah,
but
it wasn't
razed.
It wasn't razed because it was acting as a hospital for wounded soldiers. And
makes
decorum
sense.
says you don't attack the wounded.
Someone tell Putin that.
Seriously. Now, we're gonna get into the hauntings now. You ready?
Yay!
Alright. Now, why do people say that Poplar Hill Mansion is haunted? I did mention above that the estate did include 18 human beings. The story goes that Sarah, yes, another Sarah, but not the last Sarah. This is Sarah without an H. She was a 19-year-old slave. Her job at the mansion seems to have been like a nanny/nurse for John and Sarah's 4 little girls. One night, when she was tending to the kids, the skirt of her dress caught fire, and she was unable to extinguish the flames and unable to get herself out of the dress and was burned to death in front of the children.
Holy shit.
Yes.
That's horrifying.
Now, if you look through some of the photos, I sent you a photo because the scorch marks from that fire are still on the floor. So,
okay. I don't...
Yeah, it's a little farther down, but yeah, that's the room.
I see the photo, I just don't see the scorch marks.
There's one of a close-up of the burned wood.
Where the video, like right above the video? I see it now.
Yeah, so,
wow.
Yeah, it's usually covered, I think, by a carpet, but they are still there. Wow. So, yeah, absolutely horrific way to die. People who have gone into that room have experienced energy changes in the room when they enter it, and per Mindy Bergeon, the author of the Haunted Eastern Shore books. So, when you have the energy of the room changed with such a tragic event, sometimes people think one school of thought is that the change of emotional energy sort of burns a hole in the veil that separates the worlds. She continues to describe some of the experiences people have had in the room, saying people would come into this room and find things rearranged, especially the little chair. I think that was repeated 3 times. The little rocking chair would be facing the wall, or toys would be rearranged, apparition shadow being seen. There have also been accounts of dresser drawers being opened and the contents being rearranged, or linens being pulled apart on the wooden bed. They attribute these to Sarah, the children's caretaker.
It's the doll.
Yeah.
It's the creepy ass fucking doll.
Dolls are creepy.
I bet if you take the dolls out, there'll be no more hauntings.
I'm sure the hauntings will just happen, but a little less because the doll is gone.
It's a demon. Demon doll.
It's a talisman for the haunting.
I'm creeped out by dolls.
Dolls are creepy. They're really creepy. So, there is a belief that both Sarah and the children watch over and haunt the room she died. People have reported hearing children's voices laughing or talking during a paranormal investigation of the room. The investigator's audio picked up a little girl saying "mama," which is the clip that you can watch now if you want. I'll let you pull that up and watch it. Due to copyright issues, we could not play this clip, so enjoy this ghost man instead.
I didn't hear it.
I heard it when they did it the first time, but when they slow it down, I don't hear it.
I kind of heard a "wah."
Yeah, there's like a little high-pitched voice that's neither of the two people talking.
Yeah, but I'm skeptical.
There's more. Alright, so even the museum curator, Sarah Myers, the third and final Sarah in our story, Sarah lives alone in the house and is a self-proclaimed skeptic. She said, "We actually have recordings. I have a really great recording that a paranormal group did in this room when there were no children in this room. Everyone else was downstairs and there was no children in this group at the time, but there was a really great recording of a little girl saying, 'Mama, Mama, are you there? Mama, can you hear me?'" I was unable to find any of those clips. That was the only clip I really found of any recording in the house, so that was kind of disappointing to not find more. Myers also shared a story of her first Christmas in the house. She had been decorating the tree, and having placed the last ornament on the tree, she said she stepped back and asked out loud, "What do you guys think?" And the grandfather clock chimed. And the reason this is weird is she says that the grandfather clock has never worked and does not work and does not chime.
Okay.
Yeah. There is also another story of a woman visiting the mansion, unaware of the history of the building, asked Myers, "Have you ever felt the presence of ghosts haunting the home before?" And as Myers started to say that there are many stories of spirits that linger in the house, she paused after hearing a soft thump just as all the lights went out in the dining room where they were standing. She then said, "The electricity shut off. Weird. That's never happened during the day before." She's attributing that to the ghost saying, "Yes, we are here." Most articles I've read said that the spirit of Sarah, the children's caretaker, as well as the children, seemed friendly and kind. Some even described feelings of comfort from Sarah. There is, however, one soul who is less than happy to be there, and he was also a slave named Samuel. So,
Can't say I blame him.
yeah. Per documentation from Dr. Houston's death receipt dated May 17th, 1828, that indicated a slave named Sam who was 23 years old, was until recently trapped in the basement of the mansion. Sam's spirit has indicated through a medium that he is connected with that he is the keeper of the estate. This particular medium's name is Oletta Davis, and when she visits the property, Sam has said to her, "Ma'am, there are people here." Sam is very protective of the property and only wants family to be there. Davis has explained that the people visit to help take care of the mansion, and apparently Sam likes to hum while he works. Since he is no longer trapped in the basement, he is not unfriendly. He's just protective.
They were trapped in the basement?
There were some souls trapped in the basement, and that's because this next part. Poplar Hill Mansion does have other spirits in the basement, and these spirits traveled there through the Underground Railroad as the house was a stop for a time. Some of these trapped spirits are those whose last stop was Poplar Hill Mansion and didn't make it over the Pocomoke River. So they went back to their last stop, and that's where they settled. And now this house really has a lot of the country's history, good, bad, and everywhere in between. And now it serves as a historical museum where you can visit for a tour and do some investigating as well. That's all I have on the story.
It's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I think when I first moved to Erie, gosh, I think it was the cable guy. I forget, but someone came in to hook something up right after I moved in. And he was telling me about just cool things in Erie. And he said there were some of the old houses that he would work in were also stops on the Underground Railroad.
Yeah.
And that is a topic I wish I knew more about.
Yeah.
That I would love to, that I should very much much educate myself more on, because I think it's very interesting.
I did like that the house ended up being a stop on the Underground Railroad, and that they were helping people.
Yeah.
And, it's unfortunate some people didn't make it over the river, but others did. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's anytime you have to do things covertly, there's danger involved.
Exactly. Exactly.
And it's incredible the price that people would pay for freedom.
Yeah, it's amazing
and
what humans...
the amount of people that take it for granted now.
I agree. I completely agree. So yeah, that's my story. I did want to do one little honorable mention and talk about quickly the witch tree in Maryland.
You mentioned that part too.
Yeah, so the witch tree, I didn't do much research on it, just the preliminary that I saw, but apparently there's a really creepy tree on the side of the road where people get really eerie feelings, and I don't know why it's called the witch tree. I didn't really do much research because it's like 16 miles outside of Salisbury, and I wanted to stick as close to the city as possible, and Poplar Mansion was the option. So
yeah,
but I thought it was kind of interesting, and I know you said you had a story about a witch tree as well, so I wanted to give you the opportunity to tell your story if you want to.
Oh yeah, I'm sure this is a very short version of the story.
Okay.
But when I was little, I grew up in northern Iowa, so we would go to Minnesota for vacation a lot when I was a kid, and we went up to Duluth, Minnesota area, where there's a large indigenous population there. And I forget exactly what town this is closest to, but I know it's a ways out of Duluth. It's north quite a ways. On Lake Superior, there is a tree that grows directly out of this huge boulder on Lake Superior. And the local indigenous people view it as a sacred place. So when you go there, this might be different now. I don't know, but it wasn't protected. There was nothing keeping anyone out. In fact, it was on the map when I was a child, so that's why we found out about it. So we would go there, but it was pretty clear it wasn't for us. And I remember this tree, it's just like this wiry little tree. It's still alive, but there's not a lot of life
in it
left. You know what I mean? Like the top branches still grow leaves and stuff, but the lower ones are pretty bare. Anyway, there would be little piles of tobacco all around the tree, and there would be just little gifts in the tree. Like people would go there for clearly a ceremonial purpose. I'm not 100% sure on what that purpose was because I was a child, but it was clear it wasn't meant for me. I remember, but I loved it. I just loved going there and just felt like such a cool, important place as a kid. Because even walking down to it, you had to walk through like a little hike you have to go through to get there. It's very short. If it weren't short, my family would not have gone. They are allergic to hiking. But there's all these big canopy trees that go over the hiking trail with moss hanging from them. So it just kind of has a special feeling, like you're going to a new place.
Something magical about it.
Yeah, like secret garden-y.
Oh.
Like it's a new place.
Like untouched by nonsense.
Yeah, like it wasn't meant for me, so I felt like I was in a place that was new.
Yeah.
Do you know, like, even though it's not new,
Yeah.
it's not new to the people it's meant for.
Yeah.
But it wasn't meant for me, so it felt like I was trespassing.
Yeah.
Because I was. Even though, again, it was state land, but,
That's cool.
definitely trespassing.
That's really cool, though.
Yeah. I should look up, just like as an adult, to find the history of it, because it is interesting. But when you mentioned the witch tree thing to me, it brought back that memory. I was like, oh my god, I had forgotten about that.
Yeah. I mean, I would have loved to cover the witch tree in Maryland, but it was
just
outside of Salisbury by enough where there's an option in Salisbury, so I may as well just go with that one and just mention it later. But there were a lot of, interesting areas.
Well, and the whole point of this is maybe we'll get a chance to go back sometime.
But I enjoyed researching Salisbury, and it was
that scorch mark freaks me out.
Yeah, the fact that it's still there, it's sad. Like Sarah's story is really sad, and I couldn't find what happened to Sam as to how he ended up there, as a soul trapped there.
Yeah.
Honestly, reading some of the stuff made me not want to know more. So
no,
but I did go into a really deep dive as to what Pemberton's Goodwill is, and I never could figure it out. Every time I searched it was like, find a Goodwill near Pemberton. I'm like, no, that's not what I want. But apparently,
was there a place nearby named Pemberton?
Well, there is a Pemberton's mansion in the Salisbury area, and it's actually was built by Samuel Handy, which I think was related to Levin Handy, and it's now part of a state park or a park. There's Pemberton Park and there's Pemberton Hall, and they're not far away, but there's no
Okay, so that was a big name in that area.
Yeah, but I couldn't find the origin of Pemberton's Goodwill. Who was it? A guy named Pemberton? Pemberton, or was it, like, named after a place? But, like, all I could find out was that it was part of Somerset County, and I'm like, all right, well, that doesn't help.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, so I don't know what Pemberton's Goodwill is. I looked it up. I tried searching as many options as I could, and I couldn't figure it out. So
a little bit of a mystery.
Yeah, there's a deep dive that I failed at. I was very upset by it.
Well, I mean, it's hard when you're talking about a story that was like more than 200 years ago. The internet's only been around for what, 25, 30 years for lay people to use. So
I would love to know more.
Honestly, to me, it's kind of nice to know that there are some things that just aren't going to make it on the internet.
Yeah, and Pemberton's Goodwill is probably one of them.
Yeah.
All I know is it was a large plot of land that he bought part of it from. And then Sarah, Dr. Houston's wife, ended up selling a lot of the land, and those parcels of land that she subdivided out ended up being more like Federalist-style homes, but those didn't survive the fires or the war, so...
Yeah, that makes sense. There's so much history out east.
It's kind of crazy. Like, it goes back so far, and wow, this country has a lot of history that, like, just doesn't extend farther west.
Because for probably 100 to 150 years, maybe even 200 for some regions, the U.S. consisted of just that one area along the ocean.
That one strip across the coast, yeah.
Yeah, which was probably better for
everyone else, yeah.
Except for the Native Americans that lived in that area, of course. But you know, it's hard. It's hard. I think I'm glad that we talk about these stories and include the details that enslaved people were part of this story, because obviously they're part of our history, and pretending they don't exist, it doesn't do us any favors, and it doesn't do Black people or BIPOC people any favors.
No, this is why I don't like to reword history.
Yeah.
Because I feel like rewording it dilutes its importance.
It just makes me uncomfortable. I don't know. That's my white supremacy attitude, like the internalized white supremacy, I guess, coming out. But it makes me really uncomfortable to think of people as, like, a monetary value.
I don't know. Like that human beings were assigned monetary value. I would never have done that myself, but...
Oh, no, I'm not suggesting you would, and I know you don't like it.
No, I know you're not. I also don't believe in changing how history talked about people, because I think that also dilutes the importance of how we learn from it.
Yeah, I get that.
So, want to see where we go next?
Yeah.
So.
All right.
We're going to spin that wheel.
Yeah, it looks like we're going to Dover, Delaware, so we're actually not going too far away.
Oh, wait. Well, let's find out what we are talking about. It's number 7, people of prominence.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about Delaware, so...
We'll find out.
Except for that's where Biden's from.
Yeah, we'll find out more about Delaware. I don't really know much about it either.
Alrighty.
We did it! Yay! I survived this week!
Alright, well...
I
will see you there.
See you there.
Alright, happy traveling.
Bye!
Bye! Thank you for listening to the Wandering Chronicles podcast with your hosts, Ashley and Jamie. You can follow us on social media at Wandering Chronicles Pod on TikTok, Wandering Chronicles Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, and WND Chronicle Pod on Twitter. Or you can email us at wanderingchroniclespodcast@gmail.com. New episodes drop once a week. If you're liking what you're listening to, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on Apple. If you don't like what you're listening to, that's fine. Please tell everyone you know about our podcast. Your bank teller, that person at work that you're pretty sure steals your lunch out of the fridge every day, but you can't prove it, so you don't say anything. The hot dad that walks his dog by your house every day. Your cashier at the grocery store. Your children's friends' parents. I bet they listen to podcasts. Okay, thanks. Bye! But he called me a passive-aggressive cunt. Which, I don't, like, that's not going to offend me.